why the anti-Trump protesters are making assumptions that could be just plain wrong.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say.
See how the next president could surprise Republicans and Democrats on immigration, gay rights, abortion, foreign policy, and health care.
Are you going to make sure that people with preconditions are still covered?
Yes.
Trump's new chief of staff and top advisor give us some new clues into how he will govern, and it could set up another clash between the insiders and outsiders.
The swamp doesn't want to be drained, and the swamp will just suck you in if you let it.
Plus, on the lighter side, we have a new round of our game show Political Squares with former Bucks, our panel of stars, and some surprises along the way. This is Money, Power, and Politics. Okay, Marissa, change is coming, and we'll start with three big things that could change faster than you can blink.
So in March, we brought you Money, Power, Politics all the way from Cuba.
That's right. We spent a week there, and if you take a look back, well, there you are. Yeah,
Yep.
We spent a week on the streets of Havana. We covered the president's visit there to show how our thawing relations with Cuba could affect more changes in Florida and Tampa Bay.
But the next president has a very different perspective. On the campaign trail, Donald Trump and Mike Pence have both said that they would undo the president's efforts in Cuba. In fact, Trump said, quote, "We will cancel Obama's one-sided Cuban deal made by executive order if we do not get the deal that we want and the deal that people living in Cuba and here deserve, including protect religious and political freedom," end quote.
And so President Obama acted without authority from Congress to thaw relations with Cuba, and so the president-elect, then President Trump, can act with or without Congress to seal things right back up. Now, if you listen to federal transportation officials, they're telling us, look, it's just too early to say. We can't speculate on the current agreement we have. But something to keep in mind, the U.S. and Cuba, they already struck a deal to allow commercial flights between our nations. But back in September, we learned that we don't yet have air marshals on those flights, even though the administration said that we did. And that drove this push from Republicans in Congress to hit the brakes, led by Senator Rubio. And now that Republicans will control the White House and both chambers of Congress, we could see certainly a reversal in transportation policy and diplomacy with Cuba. That's our big change. What's our next big change?
So how about Democrats drafting John Morgan for governor of Florida?
The John Morgan.
The John Morgan.
Would he even go for that?
He didn't say no, and he didn't. And check out his brand new website, forthegovernor.com. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I see where he's going
Ben
with that.
Pallara, who ran the medical marijuana campaign, is now leading the Draft John Morgan campaign.
And you're looking at the site as we speak here. Now, something tells me that Pallara and the medical marijuana folks would not just go out there and do this on their own. They're not going to do it without the approval, possible approval, if not the knowledge of John Morgan himself. I know that Bob Buckhorn and Gwen Graham and some others won't think much of this at all because they're already thinking about running for governor themselves as Democrats. But Democrats at this point are licking their wounds, and they're looking for new leadership on a new level, and maybe somebody who, like Trump in a certain sense, can put his name on signs and buildings, and already has, and is larger than life. I think I know where they're going with this.
Yeah, well, unlike Trump, like you said, Morgan is already a household name and connected with working class voters on the issue of medical marijuana.
Okay, third big change. It relates to our ports because they may not be getting as much business as they had hoped. I mean, you have Florida companies who were planning to cash in on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, for example.
And it was billed as a way to expand Florida's trade with 6 countries and open the door to 5 others. But Trump just doesn't want it. He also doesn't like NAFTA and could change that as well. And as president, he has a lot of power over our trade policy.
And so the bottom line on this, Florida companies may not cash in on as much international trade as they might have thought just a few days ago. And at the same time, we have some other changes that may catch both Republicans and Democrats by big surprise.
Well, let's start with health care and what Trump said last year, and then again, what he said last night.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say.
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody.
Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it.
Last year on 60 Minutes, Trump said he wants universal government-funded health care. Then last night, he did say he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare. But watch how he says he wants to keep the most popular parts of it.
Are you going to make sure that people with preconditions are still covered?
Yes. Also with the children living with their parents for an extended period.
You're going to keep that?
Very much try and keep that. Adds cost, but it's very much something we're going to try and keep.
While on the campaign trail, Trump said he'd prosecute Hillary Clinton. Now he's even dialing that back.
I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. They're good people. I don't want to hurt them.
And his promise to build a wall across the border could be scaled back in places. Instead, he's talking about putting up a fence.
Yeah, it could be. There could be some fencing.
To his progressive critics who fear Trump will roll back gay rights, he reminded them of what he said at the Republican convention back in July.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
And when asked where he stands on same-sex marriage, President-elect Trump said it's legal and it's time to move on.
Do you support marriage equality?
It's irrelevant because it was already settled. It's law. It was settled in the Supreme Court. I mean, it's done.
Okay, so let's look at the list here. Let's start with Obamacare. Trump wants to keep key parts of Obamacare. He wants to scrap free trade policies that his own party has promoted for decades. He's concerned about protracted wars overseas. He wants to commit much more money to rebuilding our aging bridges and roads, and Democrats, in fact, could find much more common ground, therefore, with President Trump in the future than they think.
Yeah, and some Republicans may be cringing over Trump's pick for chief of staff. Remember when Jeb Bush and John Kasich and Lindsey Graham broke their oath to support the Republican nominee?
Well, I do, and I bet that Reince Priebus remembers that too. He ran the Republican Party, and as chief of staff, he now runs the White House here. So I asked Reince Priebus what he thinks about those Republicans like Jeb Bush who broke their promise and bailed on Trump. So all of the GOP presidential candidates, all 17 of them, signed a loyalty oath, and a couple certainly have backed away from it. So how will you punish the Republicans who went back on their word and won't back Mr. Trump?
Look, it's not so much about punishment. I know that's kind of the fun thing to talk about, but it's really about making sure that people who have used our party label and agreed to do things with our party, especially whether it be data, whether it be the fact that they agreed to get on the ballot in South Carolina, but also said, hey, if I do this, I'm going to support the eventual nominee. I'm out here just reminding those candidates of the things and the promises that they made.
Reminding them of the promises they made. Now he's running the White House here. Bet that Jeb Bush and Mr. Kasich, Governor Kasich, and some others are wincing right now. So we have a lot of ground to cover. One of my favorite segments is coming up here, but I'm going to start with this. We've got a very interesting firestorm. We've got a Buccaneers player, Mike Evans, taking a stand by sitting down, and now he's at the center of a mess.
Plus, two former NFL players butt heads in the much anticipated return of Political Squares right after the break.
One of these stars is sitting in the secret square, and the contestant who picks it could win a special prize. Which star is it? John Wilson, Jen Epstein, Vanessa Rufus, Chris Cato, Russell Rhodes, Mark Wilson, Matt Towery, Marissa Lynn, or Charlie Belcher. All on the Political Squares. And here's the master of political squares, Craig Patrick.
And here we go. Welcome to another round of Political Squares. Squares, so good to see you.
Nice to be seen. Craig, ready to do this?
We'll have them standing up like they got stuck with hat pins.
Wait a minute, Chris. Are we doing Dan Ratherisms tonight?
Yes.
Then this game will be tighter than a rusted lug nut on a 55 Ford.
Tighter than spandex.
Tight as the pages in a book.
How about crackling like a hickory fire? Hot enough to peel paint off of a Florida concrete blockhouse.
Hot as a New York elevator in August?
How about fired up like a Tampa parking lot in the middle of July?
Oh, the squares are all fired up, and we have a special Glory Days Bucks edition here with Brad Culpepper, O's. Thanks for joining us.
You're quite welcome. Glad to be here.
And we have Chidi Ahanatu, X's.
Thanks for having me.
I think X goes first.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
Who do you like?
I'll take Charlie.
Charlie Belcher, center square. Charlie, you ready for this?
As long as you don't sack me, Chidi, I'll be good to go.
Who accused Gerald Ford of playing too much football without a helmet?
Roger Goodell, maybe? He put him right into that concussion protocol. Yeah, delayed the election for weeks, pretty sure. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. No, it wouldn't have been Goodell. Actually, I know the answer to this question. perfectly simple answer to this question. It is Richard Nixon. Yes, I am not a crook, but I think that you play too much football without a helmet. That's what he said, Richard Nixon.
Agree or disagree?
That sounds like something Nixon would say. I agree.
Sounds like you agree. Oh, no, you got it wrong. Oh, no. Circle gets the square. Right off the bat, it's looking good for you, Brad.
It is looking good for me. Not unexpected.
All right.
Careful, Brad. This is going to get a little tricky.
Brad, who do you like?
I'll take Mark.
You're going to take Mark. Mark, this one's you.
All right, hit me. Oh, I don't really want to get hit by Brad Culpepper, so just ask the question.
Where do we get the term stump speech?
I got this. Piece of cake. You know, back in the olden days, they've been doing this for centuries nearly. They would say things to, in a sense, stump the campaign opponent. Hence, maybe mislead them, a few other different kind of directions, stumping them, so to speak, confuse them. It's like a Jedi mind trick.
I believe that's incorrect. I think a stump speech was standing on a stump to give a speech back in the day.
You're going to disagree?
I disagree.
And he nailed it. He got that one right.
Can't pull anything over on this guy. You're exactly right. Back in the days, you know, you would literally stand on a stump, and then at the same time, if you tripped over that stump, then you would, in a sense, be stumped.
It is looking good right now for Brad Culpepper here. And Chidi, I think I know where you're going next.
Yeah, I have to go for the block.
Go for the
Vanessa.
block. Vanessa, you're up.
All right, let's do this.
Which 2016 candidate for president drafted Herschel Walker?
Easy one. I'm a Georgia girl, so I know this one. It's Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. What do you think?
I agree.
Gonna agree? Well, you nailed that one. You get the block. X gets the square.
USFL.
Yep, the New Jersey Generals.
Uh-oh, Brad, what do you see?
Let me get Jen.
All right, we're gonna go with Jen on this one. Jen, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Who organized the first inaugural ball?
Well, you know what? I know this one because my great-great-grandmother's aunt's sister's boyfriend's fiance, Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross. What do you think?
God, I think it was Andy Jackson or somebody like that. So I would disagree.
You're going to disagree?
I am.
Yeah, I was bluffing. It was totally Dolly Madison. Duh.
You get the square. Chidi, I think your hand is forced here.
Yeah, it is. I have to go for the block again.
You're going to Matt Towery, our pollster. Matt, are you ready for this?
You better watch out or I'll do my Paul Lynde imitation.
All right, Matt, let's hear it.
I don't know the answer to that.
What do you think of that Paul Lynde impression? Is that any good?
It was horrible.
It was horrible. That was horrible. Oh my goodness, it needs to be more of that, right? All right, Matt, here we go.
Wait, hold on. Do you even know who Paul Lynde is? I knew Chidi didn't know who he was.
In 1990, Georgia's Republican nominee for governor was Johnny Isakson. He went on to become Georgia's senior U.S. senator. But what became of the GOP nominee for lieutenant governor that same year, 1990? Matt?
You're looking at him. It was me, and I retired to Florida.
Fox 13 pollster.
I disagree.
You're going to disagree, and he was right about that. So we have a winner in round one. It is Brad Culpepper off to the early start Glory Days Bucks.
Reliving them.
Reliving them. All right, we're going to see you for round two next week. Thanks for joining us. All right, here we go. Coming up, Evan explains why so many so-called experts got the election so wrong. We're going to head over to Evan's Corner right after the break.
This office is bigger than any one person, and that's why ensuring a smooth transition is so important. It's not something that the Constitution explicitly requires, but it is one of those norms that are vital to a functioning democracy. It's part of what makes this country work. And as long as I'm president, we are going to uphold those norms and cherish and uphold those ideals.
Well, President Obama spoke for the first time this afternoon since meeting with President-elect Trump last week. You heard him say he and his staff are aiming for a peaceful and cohesive transition of power. Meanwhile, Democrats across the nation are seeking new leaders, and Republicans are celebrating a strategy that critics said would never work. So Craig walked over to Evan's Corner to break it all down.
Okay, here we are at Evan's Corner. Evan, big news, because I know you've collected all these lanyards, all these press passes from all the rallies, and you'll be selling these on eBay, right? So
No,
that anybody can have them.
I'm actually probably just going to keep them for my own personal collection.
You've got a great collection here, by the way. Before we get into the guts here, it's baseball, it's politics.
Yeah.
What is this? Toilet paper, Trump toilet paper. What's that? What is this?
This
what
is
are you
a
doing
plant.
here?
This is a plant.
What are you doing with the toilet paper?
This is not mine. Clearly a plant from Craig Patrick. I can promise you that.
So let's get into
Not
Act
mine.
like it's not yours.
I wouldn't do
Come
that.
on now. Okay, so you covered the rallies time and time again, both campaigns. In hindsight, what strikes you most about what you saw in the Trump rallies versus the Clinton rallies?
So I think the biggest thing was there was all this talk about whether the Trump rallies were going to translate to votes. That was one thing that had kind of never been tested before. The Trump rallies were kind of on their own as a piece of campaign strategy. I think the Obama campaign had very large rallies, but they also coupled that with very sophisticated data operation. And I think one of the big things about the way Donald Trump did his ground game was that, you know, I don't necessarily need to make 100 phone calls to you. If you're wearing a Make America Great Again hat, that's good enough for me. There was a lot made of, well, they're not spending as much money on TV ads as they are on ball caps. Turned out to be the right strategy. Hillary Clinton spent lots of money on ads, but that doesn't really foster the same connection with somebody as putting on a baseball cap does.
And it turns what a lot of strategists thought works and doesn't work right on his head, did it not?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've seen in politics time again, Lyndon Johnson was kind of the master of this, was you would go out and you would reach people on your own. And by reaching people, they felt, well, hey, he did enough to speak to me. I'm going to go and vote for them. And I think one of the things you see is that there were lots of people who voted for Donald Trump who felt like they were at the back of the line for a long time.
And so goes another edition of Evan's Corner. Evan, thank you much.
Good to be here, sir.
Well, coming up, a state leader is encouraging fans to boycott the Buccaneers over Mike Evans protesting Trump by sitting through our national anthem. We have the fallout and predictions of what happens next after the break.
Okay, here we are, Monday Sports and Politics. So we have Mike Evans, the Buccaneers wide receiver. We now have Jack Ledval, a powerful state senator who is encouraging Bucs fans to boycott the team until Evans apologizes or is off the team. This is taking us into the realm of state government. It is a mess the PR department did not want.
Yeah, he sits through the national anthem protesting the election of Donald Trump, and so he says he's going to keep doing it until, I don't know, I guess for the next 4 years at least.
After stating that he did not vote. And with that, drawing a correlation between the anthem and Trump is one thing, especially when the team is celebrating veterans. To say you didn't vote and then say you're protesting by sitting on a national anthem, oh my goodness, that was a long way from finished.
Yeah.
All right, that's our show. We'll see you again tomorrow night.